Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Sophia Rodriguez, and I'm currently an SMBA student at CSUSM. So today I will be presenting on my analysis on the Welco Lumber Company case study that I did. So just a little bit about this whole thing. So a manager by the name of Gene Denning did a study where he videotaped 365 logs being broken down and processed. So in total, he oversaw 3 of his operators. So their names are April, Jim, and Sid. And he basically just saw how they processed each log that they worked on. So, Gene looked at a few things. So he looked at the value of the log that it's supposed to be at, the actual value the log was processed at. And from this, he also determined the lost amount of each log if that log was processed with any errors. So as far as the analysis and the approach of this whole case study, we first look at lost profit. So from the data set, Gene found out that basically 180 of the 365 logs that were processed with errors. So these errors were either excessive log breakdowns, off-center cants, or reduced value cuts. So just by getting the sum of the potential gain of each log with errors, I found that $735.14 was calculated as lost profit within the data set. So in terms of the operators, again, April, Jim, and Sid. So out of the 3, April had the most potential gain, or in other words, the most errors when processing. So she averaged $2.53. Jim followed right after her at $2.33, and Sid averaged the least amount out of the 3 with $1.25. So on average, if we look at the whole data set, $2.03 is being lost from each log processed, which is quite a bit. And here we see the visual, April averaging the most because she has the most errors, and Sid averaging the least because Sid has the least amount of errors when processing. So as far as small logs versus large logs, all 3 operators have a higher average potential gain when processing large logs and a lower potential gain when processing small logs. So in other words, there's more errors when they process large logs and less errors when they process small logs. So in this next slide, we see a visual. So from this, we see that it's calculated that April has less errors when processing larger logs, and Sid has the least errors when processing small logs. As far as variation goes from this data set, when looking at variation, Sid has the least amount of variation in his potential gain. And since he has the lowest error rate out of the 3, this shows he is more consistent when processing. So April and Jim, on the other hand, were shown to have closer variability, which is due to their higher error rate. So since they both have a higher error rate, they have a lower level of consistency when processing. So we see here on this next slide, they all have variation. And even though Sid has the least amount of errors, he still has errors when processing logs, which shows variation in his data set. So moving on to recommendations. Based off of the data, April loses the most profit when processing small logs, and Sid loses the most profit when processing large logs. So it's recommended that Gene, who's the manager, move April to solely work on large logs and move Sid to solely work on small logs. So as far as Jim goes, since He had errors when processing both small and large logs. It's recommended that Jim go through strategic training to enhance skill set and proficiency in his work. So by identifying lost profit, analyzing operator performance and understanding these error patterns that they have, the study really highlights the need for strategic changes in order to optimize profit. So, with this analysis and these recommendations, of course, if they're implemented, Welco Lumber Company is able to optimize from large and small logs when processing, and they're also able to raise their profitability with these recommendations. So thank you.